What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I just got home from an early press screening for a movie that I'm getting to check out quite a bit early, and I had to talk about it. So that movie is called Better Man. Directed by Michael Gracey, who wrote this film alongside Simon Gleason and Oliver Cole, this film stars Robbie Williams, Jonni Davies, Steve Pemberton, Allison Steadman, and many more. What a movie. I love talking about movies on this channel, and it's beautiful when I get to watch a movie that truly inspires me. And I'm happy to say that recently, a lot of the movies I've been able to cover here have been pretty solid, and it's been nice to have a run of movies that I can at least say I enjoyed or absolutely loved. And Better Man is completely joining those films as a film I absolutely loved, instantly becoming one of my favorite films of 2024. Now, for anybody who is unfamiliar with this film actually is going to have a limited theatrical release here in the States starting on December 25th on Christmas Day, but won't get its official wide release until January. Thankfully, there was no official embargo for the reviews for this, but the email they sent me when I got to check this movie out early said, hey, we'd prefer if you keep the review for sooner, closer to when the movie comes out. But this is just one of those cases where I saw the film and I just need to talk about it. My emotions are just, they're weighing on me to talk about. So obviously you can tell I really enjoyed this film. Before we get too far into my opinions on the film, let's get into what this movie is all about. Better Man is a biopic very different from many others that tells the true life story of Robbie Williams, a big pop star in the UK. To be completely transparent, he's not somebody I'm a huge fan of, nor is he somebody I'm super familiar with. I've seen him on various talk shows or various, UK shows that I've seen online over the course of years, and I've of course heard a lot of his big hits with his own music and the boy band that he started with, Take That. He's a very popular name in the world of pop music in general, and as somebody who's been a big fan of music since I was a young kid, especially pop when I was really young, I've definitely heard of Robbie Williams and seen things of his over the course of time, but I wasn't really familiar with his story. I didn't really know anything about how he kind of came to be who he is. I just knew of him from things I had seen. So going into this, I went in fairly blind. But what makes this film unique is that he wanted to kind of showcase that he's always felt different from everybody around him. And in doing that for this movie, he is portrayed by an ape. He is showcased in this film as an ape. Nobody else in the film sees him as an ape. He is treated like another person in this movie. This is a very human story with humans around him, but he himself is an ape in the film as we're seeing his story play out here. And right out of the gate, I thought this was such a unique and interesting choice to make. Very bold and bizarre. It easily could have gone sideways, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to kind of squint their eyes at this movie and mostly have a bit of a weird reaction to it. When I saw the trailer though, it definitely enticed me, and I kind of expected that the movie was going to be enjoyable. At least it looked like a fun time based on the trailers, and I'm a sucker for a good musical biopic that tells the true life story of somebody who rose to fame in the world of music and has some musical numbers throughout the course of the film. So I, based on the trailers, had this idea that I was going to at least be able to come here and talk to you guys and be like, hey, this was a good time, go check it out. But I'm happy to say it's far more than I think the trailers ever showcase, as this is a film that had way more layers. And again, I had no idea who Robbie Williams was outside of knowing who he was and some of his songs. I was not really ingrained in who he was on a deep level, and this film really kind of showcases a lot about his life and a lot of the hardships he goes through. And Robbie Williams is a part of this film, narrating portions of the film, doing a lot of the voiceover work in here. There is another actor who does the motion capture for him in this film, and that is Jonni Davies. But yeah, he is an integral part of making this film. This isn't one of those things where the person that they're making the film about is not integral into the production of this film. And I have to say, I was completely blown away by how vulnerable Robbie Williams really was and how vulnerable he allowed the creators of this movie to be in terms of showcasing a lot of the dark sides of his story. Over the course of the movie, we get to see him from a young age as he's somebody who's aspired to be famous and showcase talent, and he wanted to be a somebody. He wanted to show the talent that he had, his passion for singing and dancing. And what started as this really cocky young kid who just wants to kind of show off eventually became this individual who became in love with the idea of becoming a big name in the world of music, and ends up joining a big pop band at the time in the 90s known as Take That, and eventually would create his own career. But amidst all of this going on, he's kind of battling his own demons. And at its core, this is a film about self-forgiveness. This is a film about triumph within yourself, not only in the idea of triumph and becoming a big star and, kind of achieving your goals, but the idea that even achieving those goals oftentimes can still leave an empty void within yourself. And throughout the course of the film, we get to see tons of moments in his life where he's battling a lot of demons. He's got alcoholism going on, he's got substance abuse going on, and he's getting lost in everything that's going on, to the point where he's kind of lost his way. He's lost the path that he was set on. And even though he's achieved all his goals, he's achieving everything anybody would want, he's getting all the money anybody would want in this kind of world, he's finding himself consistently allowing his demons to win him over and allowing his self-hatred to take him over and consistently skew his view of himself. This is a film that really is human at its core. If you guys have been following this channel for quite some time, then you'll know that over the course of years, I've mentioned sparingly here and there that I used to be in a band. And when I was playing music throughout my teens, I knew this is something I wanted to do. I've always had an absolute love for the entertainment industry as a whole. And so coming right out of high school and right in the last years of high school, I was in a band, we were performing, we recorded an album, and we were going balls to the wall trying to make it a career. And of course, like a lot of people who try to make it as recording artists, unfortunately it did not pan out. But at the time, it really weighed me down. It really messed with my mental health. It really kind of fucked my view of myself. And I was so adamant that things will work out that I allowed it to kind of have this you're a failure kind of mentality towards myself. And anybody who knows me in my personal life, or has seen some of my videos where I've talked about it a little bit more candidly, I have mentioned that I have depression that I deal with and anxiety, and it's definitely been crippling at times. And I even started this channel as an opportunity to be creative again, talk about creative things, and be good at something. I hope over the course of years that I can become more and more comfortable in front of this camera and be somebody that you come to their videos and feel like, oh, this guy's pretty good at what he does. And so there was a part of watching this movie that I could really relate to, because while I wasn't trying to become a pop superstar like Robbie Williams in this film, this human narrative of this individual who is just absolutely trying to triumph not only over the naysayers, but mainly trying to triumph over himself. The demons that he's kind of dealing with, the alcoholism, the substance abuse, the self-hatred, the things that he isn't allowing himself to let go of, that are consistently sending him down a spiral that is just completely unraveling his life, destroying the relationships around him, and blinding him to the things that are going on in his life. A big key part of this movie as well is how lost he gets in building his career and dealing with all those other things I've already mentioned, while he also has his grandmother who really supported him in his early parts of his career dealing with dementia. As somebody who just recently lost my grandfather in the last few years, who had dementia in the last couple years of his life, and now is seeing that happen to his wife, my grandmother, who's still alive, sometimes it really weighs on me. And when I go to visit her, it's kind of something that strikes me with the reality of what's really going on, and my nostalgia and my memories and my love for her of the past really weighs with me. But I know how easy it is to come back to my normal life and be so focused on trying to reach my goals as an individual, whether it be career-wise or with YouTube or whatever the case may be, and sometimes forget about the reality of what's going on. So to see this character here who's so driven to hit his goals with his career to the point where he's neglecting those around him or getting lost so much so that he isn't necessarily putting focus in the right areas, it's something that I could really relate to. And ultimately, that's the best thing I could say about this film, is that it's an incredibly relatable film. I think the fact that Robbie Williams was part of the creation of this film and allowed the film to showcase so much of his dark side was really admirable, and made for a film that I personally could really connect to, and a film that I think a lot of people can connect to. The theater that I saw this movie in and the audience that was there was fairly quiet through majority of the film, but there were moments, key dramatic moments, where you could hear some people sniffling and you could hear some people gasping and some people being really enthralled in what was going on. And that's exactly how I felt with this movie. The film runs a little over 2 hours, and ultimately I never felt the runtime of this film. I thought the pacing was incredibly smooth. And outside of that, when it comes down to the rest of the filmmaking here, I think that the director, Michael Gracey, who's really well known for doing The Greatest Showman, did an incredible job with bringing this film together, because not only is it a biopic that has this weird, strange approach to having this ape at the center of it to be the visual for Robbie Williams over the course of the film, but it's also a film that leads into the fantastical at times, as there are portions of this film that are metaphorical or symbolic as we see things through the mind of Robbie Williams, specifically when he starts to feel the weight of the world around him. He starts to feel the weight of what he's been consuming and the fact that he has all this fame. He has everybody wanting to take pictures with him. He's got these crazy fans, but he's lost in the drugs, he's lost in the sadness and the depression, and he's drowning amidst all of this. And there are segments of this film that showcase things on a visual level that kind of take us out of reality in a way that I thought was really, really cool, really symbolic of what's going on in his mind, and something that was really cinematic and beautiful to look at. There's also a segment later on in the film where he really has to challenge and take over the demons in his life in order to move on to become a better man. And the segment that takes place in, again, and it kind of pulls into this fantastical approach that I really enjoyed about the film, that allowed us to kind of have this sense of reality and tell this biopic, but use this ape at the center of it to kind of also lean into the fact that this film is different. It doesn't feel like a conventional biopic. In a lot of ways, it feels like it reinvents what biopics can be. This is easily something that could have been a generic biopic that just tells you the story of this individual, maybe kind of glosses over some of the dark times, but mostly shows you the good stuff. But instead, this is a film that shows you the triumph in the way of hitting these goals, but also kind of shows you the triumph of overcoming so many obstacles that we as humans have to deal with in and of ourselves. And as somebody who has oftentimes, leaned into the wrong things to kind of overcome depression and anxiety, I was really able to relate to Robbie Williams' story here as somebody who was not familiar with his story. As far as the rest of the filmmaking in this film, I thought the cinematography in this film was great, especially in a lot of those fantastical moments. I thought the lighting of the film was great. As I mentioned before, it does have musical numbers at times that oftentimes had great choreography. I really enjoyed the way that those sequences were staged, the camera movements, the choreography as a whole. They were fun and funny at times. There were moments that were really heavy in some of those sequences as well. The performances across the board are really solid. The CGI to bring Robbie Williams as this ape to life, I thought was really solid. A little bit cartoony at times. It definitely isn't at the height of like the Planet of the Apes movies these days, but I think it still looks really good, and it still conveys the emotion that the film needs to convey. And overall, when it comes down to what I love about films, a rich story, filmmaking that feels inspired, and stuff that allows this film to feel different from other films within its genre, I think that Better Man is a must-see film that unfortunately is going to be coming out in a time that's going to have tons of IP-driven films that are coming out. And I really wanted to use this video for anybody who watches this as just my personal kind of vote to go see this movie. My ability to tell you guys, this is a film I feel unfortunately might fly under the radar, and I think it's a film that absolutely deserves your time. Whether you enjoy the film or connect to it nearly as much as me is obviously a toss-up. That is just the nature of film. That is just the subjective nature of how this all works. I ultimately feel that this is an incredibly well-made film that has a lot to say, has a very vulnerable human story in it that allows us to see an individual triumph through things, but also an individual who is very unlikable and very frustrating for a huge portion of the film. This isn't a movie that's trying to gloss over the dark sides that we go through. There have been times in all of our lives that I'm sure you all can relate to where you recognize you have not been the best person to the people around you, to yourself, and there's probably a lot of us that are still struggling with those kinds of things. There are moments that you allow your personal view of yourself and your personal failures to weigh you down and kind of skew your view of how you handle things with other people and how you approach things in life. And I think even though this is a film that tells you the story of somebody who became rich and famous and had to overcome things and do incredible things to become this big pop star, at its core, it is a film about becoming a better person, and I think that this is a film that can relate to a lot of people and definitely related to me. So yeah, guys, I think this is an incredibly well-made film that has a rich story at the center and some great filmmaking that definitely deserves your time, and unfortunately, I'm a little afraid might go under the radar. With all that said, that's going to be my thoughts on Better Man. I look forward to hearing all of your guys' thoughts down below. Did you like this movie if you checked it out? Did you not like this movie? The movie is obviously coming out in quite some time after I've dropped this video, so if you're planning on checking it out, let me know down below. Is this even on your radar? Had you even heard about it? Whatever the case may be, let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.